The DJ accepts no responsibility for the next record.
Say what?
Oh no, he didn't.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money?
It's time to man up, America.
Let's do this.
Total.
All right. Talk 101.3 The Buzz, WTNB Television, right here in Cleveland, Tennessee. I am the good doc in the house. A full panel today for a Man Up special. We're going to spend most of our time talking a little bit about what happened in New York this week. What's being reported correctly, what's being reported incorrectly.
Because we like to keep it light.
Yeah, we haven't had hate mail in a while.
It's been a while since I added to that 10%.
That's not true at all. Since a while since I've added.
I added.
You went.
Their numbers add
You
daily.
snowflake.
I did.
You snowflake.
You Republican snowflake.
Yeah, you did that.
Talked about it today, actually. Somebody said, how's the show going? I said, it's good. They said, I forget that you have a better time being on it than I do watching it. Right? I said,
know
sure.
who said that.
I said, sure thing. And I said, but I like it. And
It's just for us.
And I said, so I did the other day yell at Creasy and call him a Republican snowflake who was not heeding the dangers of Russian election meddling. And this person looked at me like, wow, that's weird. You yelled at Creasy? I was like, he's normally a pretty rational guy. He handled it well. Sorry, Creasy. I apologize for what I've done. I wasn't floating above America.
I missed that one.
Did
I remember the
you just do an
Republican
exclamation point or?
I yelled at
I
him.
gotta know who
and
gets
it's
more
still
plays,
well
who
in the
doesn't like
same
watching
week.
the show.
Who do you think it was?
The Buckster?
Yeah, man. He can't watch. It makes him too nervous about
Well,
America.
here's the thing.
He worries too much.
I'm amazed at people who don't like the show, but watch it religiously.
He likes us. He does not watch it, though.
Okay.
He stays away. He likes us as people, and I think in order to keep it that way, he stays away. It's the social
kinda
media
like
rule
I
that I
would-
wish people would actually do.
Okay. It's kind of like my relationship with the punnery.
Right.
Occasionally I tune in because I'm reminded I'm Dan's friend.
Right. Yeah.
And I should.
Right.
But I don't download every episode.
I tell Dan that I don't like puns.
Yeah,
Which is
this
true. I don't like puns, and so I don't listen to the punnery. And he's like my best friend, but I don't. But he does. This show really worries him about
Do you
America.
think we are like the opposite of The View? We're like the conservatives who.
Yeah, but we're not the
You're not a
problem with America.
conservative.
Like,
You're not either.
This show doesn't create the problems.
I'm a
we
conservative.
discuss.
I'm not a Republican.
That's true.
I'm a
I'm
conservative.
conservative. I'm conservative. I'm very conservative.
This show doesn't. Hold on, we got to back up. This show doesn't create the problems we discuss.
That's
That's
true.
right. That's true.
We just talk about it
Yeah.
and man up on it.
Yeah.
And we encourage anybody and everybody
Who's on The View? I don't watch The View.
Joy
I don't watch
Behar
The
is
View
the one
either.
that everyone hates, and then Megan McCain.
Joy who?
Behar,
I don't know.
She's
I don't
like-
know her.
Still on there?
top 3 liberals in the United States. Like if there was a scale,
If there's a scale,
she's like one of the most liberal
Joy
people in the
Behar is the most liberal.
Right.
And then
I don't know.
And then you
She's
don't
pretty
think so?
vocal.
you guys watch The View?
Maybe her mouth's just big, so she
I've
seems no.
heard her speak before.
But I can't watch it because of the same reason Dan can't watch it. Like because I just
When you watch it, makes you feel bad
hate
about America.
oozes out of me. Yes.
I'm gruffing at the hyperbolic claim she just made of top 3 liberal. And you
Yeah.
said, so you watch Joy Behar, and I'm like, I've consumed
actual
enough.
politician, but
It's, I don't.
outside
I mean,
of
that's she's vocal and she gets a lot of airtime, but I don't know that we could say she's the
Okay.
most
Well,
liberal.
I don't know. Here's the truth is,
She's
guys,
pretty liberal, though.
I don't
She is
watch
pretty
The
liberal.
View that I know of. I've never watched a single episode of The View. And so I don't know who's on it. And so I couldn't really answer whether or not we are like The View.
I can say that.
Is The View like super awesome?
Well, hold
No.
on.
Because if it is, then we're like The View.
I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like anymore.
Probably no liberals.
About 15 years ago, the office I worked in, we were in a basement. We had a television that had an antenna that got
Right.
one channel. And so we were stuck watching whatever was on that channel if we were in the office and you had TV on. And so I got to consume quite a bit of The View, but that was back when Barbara Walters was on it.
Right. And remember Elizabeth? Okay, so I used to be obsessed with Survivor. Elizabeth was one of the finalists on Survivor, or maybe she won, and she made shoes, and then they asked her to be on The View.
Is it Hasselbeck?
Yes, Elizabeth.
I didn't realize that.
Elizabeth Hasselbeck. Yes.
Okay.
You know what my whole takeaway from this is? I miss those sweet office jobs where you could sit around and watch TV. Like
That
it's
is
just
so
one channel,
true.
but you sit around and watch it.
Well,
We gotta have a
it
list
it
here of
was
34
on.
things I
Normally
have to
we were
complete
typing
today.
in our reports because the way our job worked, we'd go out, we'd have to be on site for an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how easily we were able to place what we were doing,
Right.
and then we'd have to go back and have about an hour and a half of paperwork to do, and so while you're doing the paperwork,
You watch The View.
yeah, well, or whatever happened to be on, because sometimes I wasn't in the office at the time that the show was on, so sometimes we were watching a string of soap operas that were.
Well, I've never seen it. I've
Nightmarish.
never seen it, so I don't know. Weigh in, everyone who's watching. Please weigh in here in our comment section. Are we The View?
I don't think
The
we're-
Republican
I mean,
or the conservative.
based
view.
on what it used to
Are
be,
we the
I don't think we are.
conservative View?
Maybe we shouldn't change the name of the show.
No.
I don't know. If anybody saw our show prep, thread has become the most, I dare I say, estrogen filled.
The women dominate.
Back
that
when
one.
it used to just be you and me messaging each other, this
Because
is
we-
what's on the show.
We asked for a Botox
Now,
party.
like, yeah, right. This time, so we were like, what's on the show this week? And you guys' response was Botox party, wine, and cabin weekend. And we were like, that's what?
I thought I was in the wrong. thread.
planning
I'm
a
like, what
field
is this?
trip.
What are we doing? This is okay. I guess we could talk about that. I don't know anything about Botox, but, you know.
Adam got his
Adam's been
eyebrows
quiet
done
for like
recently.
10 minutes. I'm
My
so
eyebrows-
confused.
Got my eyebrows done.
Did you?
Isn't
I'm
that
backed
what Botox
out.
is?
Listen, y'all took-
Isn't that what Botox is? Don't they shoot it in your eyebrow?
I think it's in your
In
forehead.
your forehead, I
Oh.
do it like right here.
I
'Cause
guess I
have-
don't.
So
I
what
don't
is
watch
it-
The
what is
View,
it-
and I don't know that much about Botox.
I'm just really shocked I've let the show go down that much conversation about the View and Botox.
That's fair.
I don't know how to recover this program. We will restart.
Oscars.
Well, yeah,
shortly.
Oscars.
Well,
You don't-
speaking
you
of
don't-
Botox,
There you go.
speaking
There
of
you go, there's your
Botox,
transition.
we didn't get to Oscars yesterday, so we're going to start with Oscars. But today we are going to focus predominantly on some legislation that took place in New York and the implications of it related to abortion. I know that abortion's a hot topic. It gets a lot of people fired up, so I hope we can have a real discussion about it, and at the same time, I'm not lost on the implications of what I'm about to say today. So, for those of you who don't watch the program, you didn't hear me just say all that, and you're not going to see any of it. So I'm not worried about you. For those who do watch the program, feel free to chime in on the face pages, facebook.com/manuptalk, and let us know your 2 cents on the issue. So let's get to the Oscar nominations. Rob made the statement yesterday that really the only notable thing he's rooting for is for Adam Driver to
The
win.
only one I feel is a
It needs to happen.
has to happen.
For
It's the
Black
only-
Klansmen.
It's the only one that has to happen, and the reason for that.
It's a matter of time with Adam Driver. Adam Driver will eventually have a Best Actor.
Yeah, I
role.
feel like
He's getting those movies.
it's weird. You know what? Here's my thing. For those of you, this is where I get them at my most nerdy, is about movies and music, right? So here I am at my most nerdy. People don't yet realize how absolutely incredible Adam Driver is. And the last time I felt this way about an actor or actress was actually Emma Stone. years ago, she started taking these weird, quirky roles, but she was like so much better in those roles than she had to be, right? And now she's Oscar award-winning Emma Stone, right? So like, that's what I'm saying. Is Adam? It's just a matter of time for him. It's easy to think like he's just Kylo Ren from the Star Wars movies, but he's not. In fact, that is like the least of things he is. But also by the way,
good.
right? Also by the way, like really good in those.
Yeah.
So that's the only one. And I'm getting a lot of mess from people about it.
Star Wars.
Oh,
It's a franchise.
I've
Began
seen one of them.
it's just a little one. It's not
The
a big
one
deal.
by J.J. Abrams like 3 years ago. That's the one I've seen.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I don't watch The View.
And I explained it. I explained
can't-
this to
I can't sit
everyone,
here.
and everyone says that's what happens in every movie. And I'm like, I don't know. It was around 3 years
It's
ago.
fine. It's fine. Anyway, here's my point is Mahershala Ali is also nominated in that category for Green Book, and I think he will probably win. He's like riding high on True Detective right now as well. But Adam Driver should win. My opinion.
Didn't he win for a Moonlight?
Yeah.
He did win, so he's won this before.
Yeah.
Adam Driver.
And he's stupid good.
My favorite Adam Driver role to date was Logan Lucky.
It's my second favorite. Black Klansman Adam Driver is that's
Your
my
favorite?
My
I like
favorite.
him in that, but Logan
Yeah.
Lucky,
We went and saw that together.
not
Black
Logan Lucky, but
Black Klansman we went
did.
to see together, and he had us rolling.
You called me and you said, "Hey, are you in the mood for a Spike Lee joint?"
Yeah,
And
that
I
is
said,
actually not
"Is
what
it
happened.
Tuesday?"
That's not what happened. What actually did happen though was you messaged us that night. This is before you were full on movie crew, and you messaged us and said, "Can I go to the movies with you? I promise I'll behave." Right?
Usually throw
No, that
Because-
was long before Black Klansman.
No, this is what you said about Black Klansman.
No, you
because
said you were going to Black
you
Klansman,
thought-
and I promised to behave.
Okay, probably
for
so.
that movie.
Right, probably so. And you were like, "Tell Brittany doesn't have to worry."
Yeah.
And it was great. Yeah, it was great. Great movie.
So, Logan Lucky's still my favorite. He's so quirky and comical in that without ever trying to be comical.
Yeah.
And so I'm rooting for Adam Driver, but we do have some other notable nominations. And we won't go down the big list of everything, but I
Want to hit
am-
just the big ones? Best Picture, Best Director, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about what stands out to me. Now, I'm the guy that usually has never seen all of the movies by the time they're nominated.
Yeah.
But I am also the guy that if they're nominated, I'm going to give them a shot.
Yeah.
I have a love-hate relationship with the Oscars. I
Sure.
love it when things I like win, and I hate it when things that I don't like win.
Yeah.
I think that makes me... I've always said I'm the quintessential consumer, right?
Welcome to America.
Yeah, welcome to America. So at the end of the day, you've had some nominations: Best Picture, Black Panther, Black Klansman, any other movie with black in the title. No, but it's Black Panther, Black
All right, who
Klansman,
got bingo on that one?
Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, spelled with a U, obviously British or some
yeah.
sort. The Green Book, Roma, A Star Is Born, and Vice. I've seen
Vice got nominated.
four
Yeah, Vice got
of those.
nominated.
I missed that one.
I've seen 2.
Vice snuck in under
I
the
saw
wire.
Black Panther with all y'all.
They dropped Vice at the right time. Had they dropped it in the spring,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't be on this list.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Vice yet. I just know
It's
that
on my list. I haven't seen it yet.
that's
I'll see
a
it before
pattern
the
of
Oscars.
political
Yeah.
stab documentaries.
Yeah,
So
it's
late
pulling,
in the year.
Listen, it's
boom.
pulling the Argo.
Yeah,
And Argo won.
And
Argo won.
They hit it why? Because emotion's really high on the front end of those things,
Mm-hmm.
and then people start to analyze it too much because it's that divisive,
Mm-hmm.
and because
Yeah.
it becomes divisive, it loses
Argo,
steam.
Zero Dark 30, like
Mm-hmm.
that's the Vice. It's like big enough names that we know what's going on, but we didn't rush out and see it opening weekend.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you hear about it, it's clever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Star is Born's going to win.
Was it
You do-
good?
is it that
I
good?
do want to see it.
Star is Born is going to win because ready, dun dun dun.
Bradley Cooper sings.
Bradley Cooper is not nominated for Best Director, and so the issue is he's been snubbed there, right? He's been snubbed in the Best Director category. So Spike Lee will win Best Director,
Did
and
he
Star
win
is Born will
for
win Best Picture.
the movie where he's the sniper? Did he win that? Did that win anything? 'Cause
Bradley
he was
Cooper?
nominated for Best Actor for You
I
know
don't
who I'm
think
talking
won.
about? It was a Clint Eastwood movie.
Yeah, no.
American Sniper?
American Sniper. It was American Sniper. No, I don't think he won.
You don't think he won for that one?
No,
I couldn't
but
remember.
anyway, I think A Star Is Born's going to win here. I think, like, oddly enough, its biggest competition within the voting are not these little is not Green Book, is not that. It's actually Black Panther. If it doesn't,
Which is
win,
odd to me. I don't feel
Yeah.
like Black Panther is a Best Picture.
Nomination.
Typical.
It is not typical. It's not typical, but it was a great movie.
It was a
I
great
want to remind
movie, but it
everyone,
was like
it was a
two movies.
great movie.
It was a great movie.
Like
It was
I
kinda
can see
weird.
it for like
It wasn't.
screenplay,
It was better than most
It was
Marvel.
not.
screenplay or some other things, but Best Picture.
It was not. I mean,
I thought it was
I'm
very
surprised.
good.
I'm surprised it got the
It
nomination,
was
but it
very
was a great
theatrical,
movie.
but action packed.
That's exactly.
I love the movie.
That's exactly it. It was bombastic in
Yeah.
a way. It was like La La Land in a sense, right? Like Black Panther was like the spectacle and the. I remember getting in this argument with Britton about like what made it great was the same thing that made like The Lion King great.
Yes, that's what I
Like,
think of.
You go to this place that is finally, and it's not like other Marvel movies, by the way, at all. You finally go to a place that's not Manhattan, right? Color and culture and everything, and like just the amount of detail. There are some videos out there where you can look up with the director where he gets into like the symbolism regarding like even their outfits and their weapons, and like just the fit and finish on the film is so much more than a typical hero film. But it's also the kind of movie where if you liked it, you probably also liked A Star Is Born. And so the big thing is maybe they split and Green Book wins. See what I'm saying?
Green Book is where the momentum
Panther,
is.
okay.
I've not seen it.
Green
I've
Book's
never
got the
even heard of
momentum,
Green
but I don't know that it's more. I don't know that it's enough to overtake Star Is Born. Let's
Lead
Let's
actor.
talk best director.
Well, let's go lead actor.
Okay.
Christian Bale in Vice, Bradley Cooper, Star Is Born, William Dafoe in At Eternity's Gate, which I haven't seen, Rami Malek in Bohemian Rhapsody, which I did see, which I could very well see him winning that.
Yeah.
I really could see him winning that category. And then Viggo Mortensen in The Green Book. I've always liked Viggo Mortensen.
The thing is, so Viggo is a maybe a victim of his own retirement, right? He was not going to make movies anymore. He's going to just go be an Italian cabinet maker. And now he's made another movie. And so he's not really like on our radar culturally. He's on our radar maybe, but like as far as people going, oh, Viggo Mortensen, I got to go see Green Book. That didn't happen. Everybody saw Bohemian Rhapsody. Everybody saw it. And, if you haven't, you should catch Fresh Air with Rami Malek, where Terry Gross interviews Rami Malek, and he talks about, he prepped for this years before he even got the nod that he was going to get the role. So, like, everything, that transformation is legit, like from an acting craft. So, like, I don't know. I think he's the front runner. I think Rami Malek's actually.
Well, at some point, somebody's looked at him and said, "You favor Freddie Mercury,"
Yeah,
and he's taken that on.
he was
So
really
fast.
surprised to get the gig. Like he didn't think he was gonna get
Which
it.
happened with Mark Martell, who's the voice that sang behind that movie. At some point somebody looked at him, and I actually brought him to Cleveland. He played at Lee University with his Christian band down here, and I said, "You sound like Freddie Mercury." So at some point, long before the role comes along, when you're being told that, you maybe start doing
That's
some
right.
impersonation.
Obviously, Bradley Cooper can't count him out again because of the snub. Like you might find he's got a chance, but I think Rami Malek's out front.
Supporting actor, you mentioned Ali for The Green Book, Adam Driver for Black Klansman, Sam Elliott, A Star Is Born, Richard Grant, Can You Ever Forgive Me, and Sam Rockwell in Vice. I love Sam Elliott, but he's the same guy in everything.
He has looked the same for 30 years.
He's the same guy in The Ranch on Netflix
That is a
he
very
was in
good
Tombstone.
Well, there's only two people to consider here, and that's Ali and Driver, period. Those are the only two. No one else on this is going to get it.
I'd like to see Driver get that.
I'd like to see Driver get it.
Supporting actress is Amy Adams in Vice. Amy Adams is amazing.
I agree.
Marina de Tavira in Roma. Regina King, If Beale Street Could Talk. Emma Stone, the favorite. And Rachel Weisz, the favorite. Is it too common to have two Best Supporting Actresses?
Happens. This because so
Rachel Weisz is a matter of time.
right, yeah, because I haven't seen Vice yet, and I mean, if Beale Street Could Talk came out like yesterday, I don't know, so I haven't seen it. I haven't seen those. Emma Stone won last year, right? No, 2 years ago. So maybe it's Rachel Weisz's year.
Time.
Yeah.
She like some people
Yeah.
you see and it feels like they deserve it, not for that particular movie, but the greater body. It's the Halle
Right.
Berry effect. Remember
Yeah.
when Halle Berry won for Monsters Ball? That
She was
wasn't
due.
her best,
But she was due.
She was due
Yeah.
from the greater body of stuff. So, best director, Black Klansman, Spike Lee, Powell Pawlowski in the Cold War, Yorgos Lanthimos, The Favorite, Alfonso Cuarón, Roma, Adam McKay in Vice. Spike Lee wins this.
Spike Lee wins.
Is this
Spike
his
Lee
first-
wins
has he
for
won
all
before?
the other things.
He's never won, has he?
No.
It's time.
It's time, and he deserves it. And he deserves it for this movie.
Yeah, this is his best movie
He
that-
deserves it for this movie.
Did
It's
he
not,
do for Love and Basketball? Wasn't that his?
I don't remember,
his
but
movie?
here's the deal. If you want to say that he wins for all the other important movies that he's made, that's fine too. You can say, well, it's a legacy win, or you could say he wins for this. Like, both are true.
I think it's a little bit, but I do
Yeah.
think this movie stands alone.
Black
in
Klansman
this
was
category.
awesome. One of my favorite movies of the year.
Yeah, and it was for all the credit we give him for how he crafts his movies. This is his best direction.
Yeah.
Like the what he the
And
direct-
everything
the
about
things that
this
go
was
in
like all the
direction, in my
best.
opinion.
This was like all the best things about his stuff. Like, he's kind of hit and miss, but for me at least, his movies are kind of hit and miss. But this was like all the things I like about a Spike Lee movie, and none of the stuff I didn't like. I loved it.
Okay. So that's the Oscars, guys. We'll see what rolls. I've got some movies to watch. The Favorite's probably where I'm starting.
Yeah.
A lot of nominations there. Cast that I like.
I'd only seen
I
about
do
half
want to
of
see
them.
Vice. I didn't want to see it in the theaters.
I really want to see Vice.
I want to wait till I can watch it with the crafted. I want to watch it alone.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want to watch that movie alone. All right, so
you
let's
can
get
cry?
to. No, so I can judge
nobody
without
hears-
commentary.
Right, because you don't want anyone looking at you being like, Adam, I know you love Dick Cheney. How'd you feel about this?
Clearly, huge Cheney fan. I don't know, something about getting shot in the face.
Ambi.
That's what he'll be known for the rest of his life.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about what happened in this week with New York. There's a lot of things floating around the face pages.
Yeah.
I intentionally, until last night, remained relatively commentary free because I kind of wanted the broader story. I have actually, believe it or not, been following this legislation, which has not been new. in
No,
New
it's
York.
been hanging out. It's been
hanging
hanging out
there
waiting
for a
to be
while.
signed.
It's everything we said as a society would never happen. You know, in a lot of people, including conservatives and liberals, have been on record saying, I know it's floating out there, but it'll never happen, right? This is a fringe piece of legislation. But we're finding more and more of these things creep up. Now, so for those of you who don't understand what happened in New York, let me break it down. For some time, New York has been the most progressive abortion state in the union.
Correct.
Not just with abortion, other areas too, but
not new.
abortion included.
Yeah.
More than California.
Correct. They have had abortions 24 weeks, and the provision in New York for some time that if the mother's life is in danger, you could terminate the pregnancy up until the due date, which is not unique to New York, by the way. There are plenty of other states and places that say we're signing no one's death warrant.
That's
At
right.
some even if you believe abortion is murder, this is justifiable homicide.
Right.
A lot of states take that position. This has been the case in New York. So it has been abortion for convenience or otherwise until 24 weeks. Beyond 24 weeks, your life had to be in danger. What has been happening in New York is people beyond 24 weeks that wanted to terminate the pregnancy for a number of reasons, specifically damage to their health. So, ectopic pregnancies. This could damage your ability to have children in the future for people who actually maybe want to have multiple children. There aren't always people who want to get out of abortions. But for people who maybe their health was at risk, not their life, but their health, they've been able to find abortion doctors to say their life is at risk, and they've been terminating the pregnancy. The lobby behind this legislation in New York that passed this week, believe it or not, was a lot of these healthcare providers saying, we don't want to have to stretch the law anymore in order to provide this service. Let's pass a law saying, if the health is at risk of the mother,
Right.
allow termination up into the due date.
Right.
The problem is that line slips. So
How do you define health?
Well, the line, that's the thing. Healthcare providers have been defining life is at risk when only health was at risk, because there's a lot of discretion in what a doctor says. We have to yield to the provider. And the argument from the pro-life community is now the line slipped further, so now people, for convenience, are going to be able to get late-term abortions because the doctor is able to say their health is at risk, because that's much, much more gray than saying someone's life is at risk, right? To say that there's some sort of health-related thing. It could be hormonal,
Right.
it could be physiological, it could be psychological. So
Which
this
is
is the big
really,
concern.
really hard to quantify.
Yeah, this is going to... So think about it. A woman walks in and says, my mother once had postpartum depression. A physician now can say, we believe that there's a reasonable expectation that you're going to have postpartum depression, which will affect your health. We'll terminate this pregnancy. So this really is, whether you support the bill, the law, or you don't, this really is a move towards abortion for convenience into late term. I've not had anyone discuss with me what has changed dramatically other than it opens the door for abortion to convenience. So that's what took place in New York. Any comments, any dissension with that? Have at it. Now notice in that description, I've kind of said that this doesn't mean all of a sudden late-term abortions start happening in New York. They have been happening.
They're already happening. And
This doesn't change much with regards
just
to
makes it legal.
infanticide.
But it's being celebrated, and the whole lighting up the
Okay.
tower pink. I mean, I told you I wanted to talk about this. I have like a whole page, but I'm so sick like hearing you talk about it. Like I literally want to throw up. But
It's not because I'm talking about it.
no,
You're
not
sick
about
of the
you
issue.
talking about. I'm sick of the issue. Yeah, it's definitely not you. But I think that it's gotten to the point where people are so afraid to talk about abortion and pro-life that people who believe in life are being shamed for talking about it instead of the people who are having the abortions. So that's one thing that concerns me. Like, I think that we should be able to talk about it and talk about how we feel that it's wrong.
Well, not everybody feels that it's wrong, though. Like you said, it's being celebrated.
I
Rob is
routinely-
vigorously texting right now.
I routinely, in my critical thinking class, they have to write
I
a
have my
persuasive
thoughts.
argument. And every term I will get 2 or 3 papers from girls that you can obviously tell they haven't done any legitimate research into what's going on or what's happening, or even the logical arguments. But they will fight vehemently in favor of a woman's right to abort a child all the way up to whenever. Because they feel that it's the woman's body, and most of the arguments that come through this, that's where they try and focus, and nobody seems to recognize that there's another human body that's
Right.
individual that yes is dependent upon the
Not
woman for a
only
while,
that,
but
yeah. Not
Well,
only that, but
you-
the
they
father
tend to
has
argue-
rights.
they tend to ignore this.
You're framing what's called the biological argument around abortion, and and this is why moving towards late-term abortion becomes an issue that we didn't have before 24 weeks, because 24 weeks wasn't the arbitrary line that was set. It was consensus in the medical community
That's the level of
that viability outside the mother. We had plenty of cases where children were being born after 24 weeks and developed outside the mother's womb. So it started out with this argument of, well, if it's not viable, there is no biological life there yet. There's no humanity. But the debate over the biology of it shifts when we open up and say viability doesn't matter anymore. The biological argument that you're making right now, Bruce,
Just goes right out
is
the
not
window.
what these proponents are arguing. They're arguing personhood. Now, for those of you who have not been very familiar with personhood in the abortion debate, it's been there, but it's most commonly discussed in euthanasia relative to people late in life who are looking, who've had severe onset dementia. They lose this
I
concept of
actually
personhood.
saw an argument, and I'm trying to remember who it was, because I watch a lot of arguments on. I go through YouTube watching people debate various things because I use that in my course, and I cannot remember who it was, but this came up where somebody was talking about the personhood, and the example that the one side took was that said, okay, so if you're defining person, are you defining it by consciousness? So if somebody is in a coma and unconscious, does that mean it's okay to kill them? If somebody
That's the Shapiro argument.
is
Can
that,
I
is
stab
that,
you?
is that who that was?
Can I stab you?
Can I
Right.
stab you? You're in a coma. Can I stab you?
Is that who that was? I don't.
Yeah,
Ben
it
Shapiro.
might have been.
He's making the argument of consciousness as personhood, but
Well, no, the other person was claiming that because he was if this was Shapiro, I don't if I'm attributing this to somebody who it's not, I apologize. I really don't remember who there were two people debating, and the one person was claiming that there was a level of consciousness that needed to be present for it to be considered a person.
Yeah.
And the counter argument was, so if somebody's in a coma or if somebody has psychosis or dementia or some kind of brain issue that alters their consciousness beyond who they are, or puts them in a state where they aren't really conscious anymore, is that okay?
Well, and these are the debates. These are the debates now. The debate, the biological arguments over whether something is life or not are out the window. It has been clear consensus for a great amount of time, even amongst pro-choice advocates, that a fetus that is viable outside of the womb is biologically life. New York has voted now to allow the termination of biological life under the premise that it is not yet personhood. Now, the personhood argument on the pro-choice left was first made by proponents of infanticide up to age 5. That's when it was first introduced in that particular ideological corner. It was this concept of personhood, and that if the biology didn't matter, personhood was everything. The first researchers to actually introduce that were two gentlemen by the name of Alberto Gubellini and Francesca Minavera in the Journal of Medical Ethics.
And they were they were part of an ethical think tank, right? This is what they do, not to I'm not downplaying what Dr. BS does for a living, but they're part of this, we think a lot about the psychology and the philosophy of things. So a lot of this is them going down these roads, right, of,
what if
my nerdery knows no bounds, but it's when you talk about, people who are involved with the Future Humanity Institute and how do we as a species survive, and how are we going to live in this world, talking about your post that you made this morning or last night, I don't remember which. These guys sit around and they think about that, right? So these guys, that's what they do, is they think about this, right? And this particular study was all part of at what point are you any good for society, right?
Well, I mean, if you're going to go that route, you talk about personality development. That's not really solidified to your mid-teens, and even then, it's still fluid.
Listen, I know I've got teenagers.
Listen,
I've got a teenager.
So where do you draw the line?
I have a teenager, Bruce.
If you're going to go that route,
right now it's drawn at birth.
Right now it's drawn at birth.
In New York. It's drawn at birth in New York. So let me remind our viewers too, Rob's right. These are people in think tank that say, what does it mean to be human? And they're creating definitions. Used to, at one point it was a biological definition, that until you were viable on your own, you were nothing more than a parasite. Mm-hmm. You were a zygote,
right,
siphoning life off of a mother. That's no longer the argument anymore, people. You cannot make biological arguments for does life begin at conception. For those of you who support what has happened in New York, the discussion at the table amongst reasonable people is over what constitutes personhood. And I want to remind you that the last time in U.S. history we had a legal debate about personhood, it was about minority races standing before the Supreme Court and saying I am a person. I'm a Native American, I am a person. I'm a black man, I am a person. And the federal government of the United States invaded the state that was violating the human rights under personhood argument.
Correct.
Invaded.
Correct.
Are you ready to invade New York? If you believe that they're violating under the
Personhood.
debate of
That's right.
personhood, if
But
you
the
believe they're
difference is-
violating the human rights,
There's
Human
a,
rights
There's,
of
there's a
people.
small difference. In that instance, you actually had people standing in front of the court, standing in front of everybody saying, I am a person. In this situation, the person has no voice and can't do that for themselves. It's the mother's job to be the voice for that.
And I'm to the point where I understand the arguments, and I think it's great that people can come up with all of these. But in reality, how do you kill something that's alive? Like, why even argue? Like, why do you have to come up with all of these reasons why you shouldn't kill it? How do you kill something that's alive, especially if it's in your body and it's a human being?
Well,
like,
this
I
is-
can't
this
even
is
get
how.
past that.
keep in mind that secular humanism says all life is equal, correct? These are the same people that told you not to
Right.
have Bacon Festival. Because the pig's life is just as... They didn't consent to you
So
killing
Except that
everything.
all life is not equal in that situation, because these are the same people who will legislate that if you were to go and destroy a bald eagle egg, you could be fined and imprisoned for it. That's no more bald eagle than the child inside the womb is a human. So
Well,
if you're going to make the secular
con-
humanist argument that all life is equal, you're going to have to justify those kind of laws.
And, well, they don't reconcile, and they have two different lobbying camps, because even though it comes from the same philosophical perspective, if all life is equal, so is all death. Correct? Mm-hmm. The problem is you've noted the flaw in secular humanism because it doesn't have a moral center. So people can be abstract with however they want to piecemeal their morality together in those things. And it's hard for someone who has moral centers, who has moral norms, for us to look on that and say, you don't make any... It's hard for us to understand those positions. Now, inevitably, we're going to have some of our liberal friends go, that is not me, I'm pro-choice, that is not me, that is not me, that is not me.
Oh, I know a ton of liberals who are
telling you,
pro-life. Yeah.
if you support what's taking place in New York, tell me how what we've said is incorrect. Present the argument on personhood. Present what's going to take place here. What I'm saying is, even when it was somebody who was capable of standing in front of the Supreme Court and said, just because I'm black, I'm still a person. Just because I'm Native American, I'm still a person. Long before they were allowed to stand before the Supreme Court, they had voices that weren't their own. Mm-hmm. They had people championing the fact that they were people.
That's right.
And I also agree, like, not only are you, women say, it's my body, I can do what I want. No, it's not your body. There's a child living in you, it's their body. Also, that child has a father. Like, if the guy got
be
pregnant...
careful.
You're dancing
No.
a
You better be
dangerous
careful.
dance
You're
there.
about to build a 10% for yourself, Jenna.
Yeah, you're setting
You
up-
mean-
Okay, so
These are
if
your people.
You mean to say that a father ought to have some form of a...
father has 100% rights, mother has 100% rights.
What,
It's not
Jenna?
50-50,
You
it's
are a
100,
crazy
100.
What law are
person in
you looking
America
at?
right now.
No, I mean,
you are
that's
a
the way it should
crazy,
be.
crazy human being in
where's-
America right now.
where's
Everyone hop on here and
Where
let
is
Jenna
this
know how wrong
Wonkaville
she
that
is.
you've
If husbands
located?
were able to have babies and not women, I would be... Am I allowed to say pissed?
Sure.
I would be pissed if he had a baby and he was like, oh, I don't want to get fat. I don't want stretch marks. And he aborts my baby, I would cut his throat.
Well, here's the
This got
here's the
dark.
dangerous
Is
place.
this what happens
This-
on The
wow,
View,
this
you
is-
guys?
This
this on
is,
The
but
View?
opposite.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly what happens on The View.
It didn't used to happen. Not like this, at least.
Here's the problem, and Bruce noted it with personhood. When you get into the personhood arguments, you move into infanticide. You move into these think tanks that say, well, if we debate personhood, what are the things we use to make something a person? The moralistic argument has been the concept of a soul, which went back to, well, if we believe in a soul, what introduced the idea of a soul? It would have been a religious background. What does religiosity say about a soul? It's given at conception, right? That's that art. But we've left that. We're now into this humanistic place called personhood. And it does open a slippery slope with, do we euthanize? Do we kill comatose people? Do we eliminate those with mental disorders who don't meet our socialization standards? And the argument is, for some cases, up to age 5.
Does this not remind you of Hitler? Like, it reminds me of Hitler.
Why?
Because you kill the sick, you kill the unborn, you kill anything that's inconvenient to you.
Well, that hasn't. Okay,
I think it's the same
the
brainwashing
legislation
too,
is
that
just
people
for the
think
abortion.
it's okay.
What we're at, where we're at now is we're going beyond what just happened into. We're starting to enter a territory philosophically that is pretty dangerous, because where do you draw the line? Where do you stop?
Right.
So right now, if you
The
just
slippery slope.
if you just stick with the law, right now the law is, if I understood what I read correctly, and if I'm wrong, point it out in the comments or somehow let us know. If I understood what I read correctly, a child can now be aborted up until the it's
day
coming
they're
out,
born, right.
Till the day it's born, as long as it hasn't exited. They can still abort this child. So the mother could on the table be like, I can't do this. Abort.
No.
And
No. Pause.
okay, so I misunderstood what I read.
Right. So the slope is there. The slope is there. This is abortion up until birth, when health risk or death are
Again, how do you define health?
No. But you have
But
to pause yourself. What you just said was you didn't say that. She wasn't in your scenario. She was like, I don't want it. And that's not what this law is.
But
no.
the
We're not
doctor-
going to
all the
lie.
doctor-
Listen, there's plenty here to attack. There's plenty
All
here
the-
to disagree with without us
all the
lying
doctor-
about the situation.
But all the doctors.
I won't go down that road.
That's
I won't
not
go down
what-
that road.
That's not what the law does.
That's not what the law
So
does.
then what she says is, oh, I feel like I'm starting to get postpartum depression already. Go ahead and.
If she can find a doctor,
If she
to
can find a
side
doctor
with
to
her,
side with her.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, the answer is yes.
But you said it was the
And
physicians that were
But yeah,
pressing for
that's
this
the
legislation.
thing. Well, you asked. I'm going to clarify. The answer is yes, that could happen. The evidence from what we know has happened with the slippery slope of, well, it's the threatening life, is there have been doctors
That signed off.
who have signed off on that when it probably wasn't the case.
Right.
The problem is in New York, you can't investigate those people. There's no regulation or significant There's more regulation for dental hygienists than there are for abortion doctors. That's what Yes on One changed in Tennessee. For all of you who hated that, Yes on One in Tennessee made it equal playing field for the state to actually
Well, let's not
verify
forget
the
that. Let's not forget
everybody.
that part 2 of this legislation, right, is that the act of performing that abortion is no longer a crime.
That's right.
So it's a dual part legislation, right? So now you find a doctor who says, yeah, there's a medical issue here, and then the abortion can be performed, and then there cannot be a lawsuit.
And it stands to reason that doctors that fudged the line with health in the future might choose to fudge the line between convenience and health.
Right.
And it may not be dishonest. It may be interpretive. It may be postpartum is a
That's
very
putting an
popular
awful
thing.
lot of power into the hands of one person.
It very much
that,
is.
That has, at least as far as the physicians that I've heard arguing in favor of abortion tends to
So
be.
to me, this is interesting. So I've got a proposal to throw out there. I'm not saying this is a perfect proposal, but I do believe in the viability of life, and I do believe it's life. And I would propose that perhaps, if in any situation like that, if you had a doctor that advocated for the best position of the mother, and a doctor that advocated for the best position of the
CASA
child,
advocate for an unborn child.
before an ethics panel,
Right.
that would give a better reasoned response to the
Right.
issue.
Yeah.
Now that requires a lot.
And
that
I know a
opens
lot
up
of
its
people
own
who hate
problems.
that. So let me say,
Well, it's
J.
acknowledging
Adam,
life.
I don't disagree with you in any way. I think it'd be great. It's similar to the structure that we're supposed to have in hospitals now, right? Where the purpose of a nurse is to be a patient advocate, right? The nurse is the patient advocate, and the doctor isn't the institutional advocate, but he's the medical advocate. He's the advocate for the procedure.
Right.
The nurse is supposed to be the advocate for the patient,
Right.
and what the patient needs, wants, right?
That's the intention.
And that's the intention. But what we find is power differentials, right? Where nurses that oftentimes find themselves in power differentials where as an advocate they are unfortunately subservient to the procedure, right? Now, I love what you're saying. Obviously, the argument against it would just be time. That'd be the biggest one. Is you got a woman on the table and there's an issue, and the issue is now. The doctor has to make a call.
And that has been the pro-choice position. To make a woman wait is torture.
That's right. And so I get it. For those of you who may, I know I haven't said a lot so far. I don't know that I'm going to say a lot. I want to say as our token libertarian, right? The libertarian, the typical libertarian stance, right, is of course to give everyone their rights, right? Everyone their rights. And so I actually understand, I guess, or I feel as though I understand why there are two sides to this debate, and I don't hate anyone on either side of this. I personally believe, I personally believe in life and personhood at the moment of conception, and I've often said that as a libertarian, your rights extend to the point at which you infringe on the rights of another person. And so I am so for women's rights. I am so for their rights that I am even for them in the unborn women, right? I am so for the rights of people that I am even an advocate for your rights when you're unborn, and I don't believe anyone has the right to infringe on someone else's right. And it doesn't mean that I think, I also want to, can I encourage some people, maybe, I hope. Let me encourage you, if you are against this, right, which I am, not pleased with this legislation at all, don't be ugly and gross towards the people who are making, we consider to be a bad decision, but it's always a hard, nobody, let me say this, the amount of people, we talk a lot on this show about perception, and how we talked about the Gillette commercial and how, like, the perception is men are this way, but most men are not this way, right? Let me tell you this. Those of you who are rightfully upset about what's going on in New York, your perception may be that women are just, that there's like these throngs of liberal women just running around willy-nilly having abortions. Your perception is wrong. So don't be gross, right? These are women, the vast majority of abortions are not happy affairs where people are super proud of what's going on or happy or that it was an easy decision. Like they didn't just wake up and go, I think I'll abort this baby, right? And so if we're going to have an ongoing dialogue in this country, if Adam's worst fears are not going to come to pass, and I fear we may be too far. In fact, I said this to the MAGA table at Bond Life this morning. I walked by and said to them, you know, as a libertarian, I've been a big fan of states' rights for a while. And the reason is because I feel like this civil war is coming. I feel like it is, guys. I hate to say it. And I'm not being a harbinger of doom. It may be a cultural civil war like we talked about. I don't mean it's gun against gun. I don't mean it's that. Right now in this country, we're at a big disagreement. We are not yet at war, right? And if we can stay the course of peace, then we ought to, right? States' rights help us go, well, we know what goes on here, and we know what goes on here, and if you're not for it, then you go over here, right? I think that could be helpful. But if you at all care about this country, don't mudsling at people who are in very difficult positions, making very difficult choices. And don't assume that everybody's just like happy, waking up and the bluebirds are singing and I'm on my way to go have an abortion and I'm singing a song. Like, don't do that. It's gross. And it isn't reality, right? If we're going to stave off this coming war of culture, then we have got to see people as people. You have got to see these women and men, right? Not just women, who were for this legislation as just as much a human as the babies that you're trying to protect, right? And I encourage you for that. So
I think that the civility in the discourse matters because we're trying to compel people to understand what we're really discussing. So if you're on the pro-life side of things, if you're continuing to have a biological argument, that ship has sailed. The people you're debating with don't care about the biology of it anymore. The science is clear. The science is undisputed about the viability of a fetus beyond 24 weeks. We're not having a conversation
That's
about
right. This isn't the scientific... And you know what? I was a pretty rational... I didn't like it because I believe life is at the moment of conception. But I did understand the pre-24 week discussion. I can understand a discussion. I can understand people talking about biology and science. I think it's important. right? I was in disagreement, but
Yeah.
you know,
This one I don't. It's
As are a lot
it's
of
hard
scientists.
to understand from a biological. But when you shift over and you start having the conversations about personhood, then you understand where people are rationalizing things like this. And the issue of personhood says it no longer it's not even a pro-life movement anymore. It's a pro-humanity movement now. What makes you a person?
That's
what
right.
makes you a person? And so at the
That's
end
right.
of the day, you can't have those in blasting hate. And for those of you who, somebody said to me last night, even abortion for convenience, you've had 40 weeks to make this decision, and you're just now making it. But keep in mind that pro-choice says it doesn't matter pre-personhood where anybody makes the choice.
right.
Right? It doesn't matter if it's at 40 weeks or 20 weeks or 13 weeks. It doesn't matter at all
Because it's not a person.
because it's not a person. And these are the people who are they didn't draw, the state drew the line at birth. The advocates of this, the think tanks behind it, the research they're using, the Pro-Choice Association of America, their position is personhood is somewhere early infancy, 2 to 5 years.
It's ridiculous.
It's a justification for infanticide. They haven't introduced that bill yet.
Yet being the
Yet,
operative word.
but the slippery slope is there, and so I think it's irresponsible if you're a pro-lifer or now a pro-humanitarian to say, well, we'll yield this. And for those of you who say let New York be New York, go back and look at how much New York actually leads the nation with legislation. I'm dealing with it from the financial sector right now. New York has always passed these little financial rules, and ultimately they become national rules. And we've had other laws that's transpired with too,
Right,
related
because
to commerce,
because
related
right because legally then you have precedent, and precedent is an integral part of how governance works.
That's right.
Right, so precedent is part of how we make legislation countrywide.
Yeah, it incubates in New York. It's pushed to a circuit court that makes judgments. It's pushed on up, and it becomes legislation for the land. So just note that it's coming. We got 2 minutes time in, Jim.
I don't want to say that we've lost this fight. I think we should still, especially in Tennessee, if we've got state rights to fight against abortion. But I think that there's other things that we can do, and we've talked about this before. Bill Lee, who is an advocate for adoption, I was looking at a post today. Brad Miser had posted this on Facebook. It says it costs $1,000 to have an abortion, but it costs $10,000 to $40,000 on average to have an adoption, or to get a child through adoption. So I think that there's other things we should work on. I think we should contact, our congressman, Billy, anyone, and just say, can we make it easier for adoption? Can we come up with alternatives to abortion? That's the real way to fight, I think.
Right. And if you're going to be pro-humanitarian, right, be pro-humanitarian in all the ways and advocate for things like sex education, advocate for things like the financial assistance of single mothers. Do the things that actually lower abortion.
I'll say
Right.
this. I'm in complete agreement with Rob. I believe in more education. But let me mind you, if you'll go to the Pro-Choice Association, I forgot what they're called, Pro-Choice Association of America, and read their position statement on abortion, they absolutely trash that.
I know.
They hate educational organizations that go out here and try to give women options. They call them demagogues. They call them all kinds of things. So the lobby behind all of this doesn't allow for the sex education, for the mother support and education that many of these nonprofits are doing. They don't want it.
Yeah.
They don't want it at all.
If you are against the wall because you're pro-people, maybe you ought to be pro-all people. And if you are against discrimination and racism, maybe you ought to be pro-all people.
It might help you.
I float
It
over
might
America.
help you.
I
Rob
float
Alderman
over
Skycam
America.
floats over America. That's all we've got for today. Talk 101.3
There's
Buzz.
still time. There's still time. We don't have to be at war.
WT&B Television. Let's save America and invade New York. That's all I've got.